Welcome to Warrior Money, the show devoted to supporting our brothers and sisters, veterans, and business. I'm Patrick Murphy.
And I'm Dan Kunze.
In just a few minutes, we're going to be talking to Brendan Duebner, founder and CEO of Life Skills for Soldiers. But first, let's get started by taking a look at some veteran headlines. Defense tech companies Palantir and Booz Allen recently announced a partnership. Dan, let's get into it. What you think?
Yeah, so the announcement came in the early part of December, and this is slated into the next earnings season. And I think one of the really interesting parts of the press release was the two CEOs of the organizations talking about how they're going to deliver quickly and at scale. And you know as well as I know that the Department of Defense is interested in the challenge set, not only because of how fast they need things, but at what size and complexity they need to. So like interoperability, artificial intelligence, cyber, all the things that we really care about. Like you need a services partner, a strategic partner to be able to deliver that at scale and execute against the mission. So it's a smart play.
And especially when you look at Booz Allen, about $10 billion a year in revenues, Palantir, world-class in AI, machine learning. So to see that public-private partnership, these two private companies partnering with the government, definitely giving our warfighters a tactical advantage over our enemies.
Yeah, it's also kind of funny because you see like all these, we talk about this alternative versus traditional defense contracting. And it's like at some point in time, even the most alternative organizations have to start to deliver at scale. So like when I see Palantir partner with Booz Allen, you're starting to see an alternative defense tech company starting to partner with a more traditional defense integrator to be able to deliver this sort of stuff at complexity and scale. So it's like, as we talked about before, it's like the next 4 years, next 8 years, people really got to start to like, once the rubber hits the road between like great ideas. All right, now let's do this at a really big scale. So it becomes really hard that way.
Yeah. I always talk about, having the vision and how can you anticipate what's coming around the corner.
Yeah, like we actually have to deliver this now. So that makes it a little bit harder. So there you go.
No doubt. All right, well, listen, next up, we'll be chatting with Brendan Duebner. All right, today's guest is the founder and CEO of the nonprofit Life Skills for Service. Please welcome Brendan Duebner. Brendan, we always start here at Warrior Money with a question, bluff, bottom line up front. Your question to you today is this: what are the skills, knowledge gaps that our brother and sister veterans have when they're transitioning out?
I think the big one that comes to mind for me is how to deal with money. The military makes it easy while we're in, but that can mean a huge learning curve when we're transitioning out.
Yeah. All right, so from the jump, you started this nonprofit. The origin story is centered around one of your soldiers, Private Lopez. Please tell us the story.
Yeah, when I was a platoon leader, I was looking for a way to help my soldiers, and quickly I saw we had money skills, and in particular, we had this one soldier, Private Lopez, who, great soldier, very fit, smart, but a lot of disciplinary issues. He got kicked out of a couple platoons before ending up in mine, and we did a budgeting class, and in that, we found out that Private Lopez was not only broke, but it was because he was spending $400 a month on the barracks vending machine, very preventable issue. Huh. And by doing that, getting his NCOs involved, getting me involved, we were able to help him with that. And he quickly became, one of our best soldiers. And I think that's just one bullet point where we could do that for thousands, if not, millions of our soldiers.
So his actual behavior improved. You noticed his behavior improve as his financial life got much cleaner?
Absolutely. I think not only was it, he had less stress in his financial life, but I think probably more important is he realized that, me and my NCOs, we cared about him. We wanted him to do better.
I know we've got a whole bunch of questions, but the interesting thing, I think we've all been officers, was the first time some of these folks ever go to basic training is the first time they actually ever get a paycheck. Yeah. Or even so much as see other folks have paychecks. So like it's really this interesting thing is like
they're learning what a routing number is, what account number is, right?
Like what they let me have a car loan. Like there's just things about this that they've never experienced before. So I really appreciate this the story about Lopez, but like we all have our Lopez because we've all been in that scenario before. It's just really interesting.
How about, tell us about the nonprofit. Tell us about the train-the-trainer model that you really established.
Yeah, for us, we're big believers that the best people to train soldiers are their leaders, their lieutenants, their captains, their sergeants, the people who know them, they see them every day, they have a vested interest in them, not bringing in people from the outside that they're going to see once and never see again. So we thought, how do we make that easy, right? And the way we do it is we create courses tailored for junior military audiences, and we make it easy for them to learn about a topic and then turn around and teach it to their people.
Yeah. And then how about, use technology to push it out? So tell us how that works.
Yeah, so we've got our learning management software. It's really kind of the brain of our organization. That's where we put all of the classes onto there, and we take all the knowledge from industry, from academia, from all of that, put it into the courseware, and then that's where leaders can access it. They can not only go through the courses themselves, but they can get access to trainers if they're stuck on a topic or stuck on, hey, how do I teach my soldiers about this? So it's just the one central area for everything.
Yeah, and then obviously, being officers, I remember, if you have any downtime, that's when you're doing your hip pocket training, right? So you always be ready for that course. Why is that important for soldiers? Like, how many soldiers are on food stamps or are struggling financially? Because it is an issue. I think people on the outside are like, oh, well, they get, barracks and they get free meals, and it's not as simple.
It's not. There's a great organization, the Military Family Advisory Network, MFAN. They do surveys every, I think, 2 years. One of the recent surveys found that 60% of military families couldn't survive more than 3 months without a paycheck. They found that 44% of military families found that their financial situation was detrimental to their physical and mental health. And they found 62% found that financiers were a major stressor for the family. So, this is a huge problem.
Yeah, and so you're working with MFAM, and how are you working with the DoD at large or the services, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Guardians? How is it early on, or where are you in the process?
Yeah, so we started just kind of grassroots social media. Hey, we have these classes. If you're a service member, you can access them for free. And now we're working with military units. So we actually just this week finished our 6th pilot. This one was with an MP brigade out of Fort Lewis. And what we did with them is we set up a pilot with our independent researcher, Harvard PhD, Dr. Bill Skimmyhorn. And with that, we're able to measure the success of, okay, when they go through the classes, how were they doing before, how are they doing after? Is it statistically significant? All that kind of stuff. So we're working with units and gathering data to show that this works and to further kind of refine our processes.
When you gather the data, who do you intend to show how this works to?
Our intention is, first and foremost, we show it to the unit commanders and say, hey, look, here's where you were, here's where you're at now, and here's our recommended next steps. Let's keep the momentum going.
For his team, for that place, that person's organization.
Right. For that company commander, battalion commander, brigade commander, what have you. And then the second thing we're doing is we're compiling all of these together to bring to DoD and say, hey, we think we have a solution here that is better, faster, and cheaper than what you're doing now. And oh, by the way, if you're able to help soldiers, sailors, Marines, Guardians in this way, here's what we think the effects can have on the larger force and on readiness, the most important thing.
Got it.
Yeah, I always say you got to meet people where they are and they're on their phones, right? So using that technology as a force multiplier is letting them know, how they can access this information because they want to do well. They're American, they're volunteering to join the greatest fighting force to ever walk this planet. But sometimes they're in a struggle bus because they just don't understand how to manage it.
Right. I mean, if you don't come from a family where you talk about money, if you don't come from a public school system that happens to teach you about money, how are you supposed to know, right? This is why soldiers get car interest rates that are so expensive or blow their basic training money on the dumbest things. It's not because, they're dumb by any means. It's just, how would they know otherwise?
Yeah. And I think, Dan and I kind of agree on this. We believe that public-private partnerships are a way to go. Like partnering with nonprofits like yours in the private sector, best in class information, to these soldiers, to these troops that need information. They need to access it.
It's also the only way to scale. So like the train-the-trainer model and corporate, private, public partner, it's the only way you can scale to meet the demand you have. Like we were at the we hosted an event just before Army Navy, and we had the 82nd Commander there with us, and he was reminded us that it's like 17,000 people are in the 82nd Airborne. That's like larger than most large companies, and that's a division of one organization within the Army. So like the only way we can scale to meet the demand that we have in a 17,000 person organization, who I'm sure has financial issues, is to do it in a distributed way. So like I totally agree with you.
Yeah. How about if there's a company commander out there, or first sergeant out there, they want to know more about life skills for soldiers, where can they find more information?
Yeah, well, they can go to our website, lifeskillsforsoldiers.org. We're also on Instagram, LinkedIn, all the usual channels. And they can reach out to us directly, info@lifeskillsforsoldiers.org. We're happy to work with any unit.
Awesome. How about, when you look at broader in a private sector, you have classmates at Wharton, we're talking about that transition. But do you still see, soldiers when they transition out struggle with the same thing about, tax rates higher? They're not getting the BAH, which is the basic allowance for housing, which is tax-free versus, the stats will show you that our troops, when they transition out, $200,000 a year will actually, on average, make less money, not more money in the private sector.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that surprise people when they transition out. Like, oh wait, all of my income is taxable. My taxes have gone up. In some cases, oh, I have to
And
now
where you
pay
live,
state income
where,
tax.
where you live matters a lot.
So I think this is just one of the I think a transition is a huge step in a service member's life, and I think that those who do it well, there's a huge diversion. Those who do it well can do really well and end up leading great organizations, becoming great citizens. And those who don't do well, they struggle, and it hurts our society. It hurts them. It hurts everyone. So I think the more we can help establish the foundation for these people, including financial skills, I think the better off all of us are.
Yeah. The number one question I feel like I was asked, because I had this like interesting hybrid career where I had a civilian life and a military life. And I know we can talk about that a little bit, but like most of my active duty friends, whether they were junior officers or senior officers or even senior enlisted, they were always asking questions about like, this grass is always greener on the outside of the military.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're like, well, maybe it's not, because I was actually doing pretty well in the military. And so it's just this weird situation where you're working through people that have never experienced the world outside of the military, and they don't totally understand the benefits they have in the military. So I'm really wondering, I'm really interested in like, how do you think about that? And did you leverage any of them during your experience?
Yeah, I went to Wharton, right? I got my MBA. Very fortunate, great program. Happy to talk about that. But I think even there, I saw classmates who were like, you know what, like the civilian world's a lot different than I thought.
Yeah.
Right. And this is at a top business school, and I can only imagine for vets that go on to do different things. I think the biggest thing about making that transition well and kind of understanding what you're getting into is setting the foundation with habits, with your finances, family, friends, all that kind of stuff. And then, just networking, talk to people. There's thousands of veterans that do this every single year. Get a little IPB on what's
right.
ahead. And
That's
and,
right. You and I share a bit of a common background. We both served in the 75th Innovation Command together, as that was being stood up in the early 2000s, 2020s is when it was stood up. And during that experience, my job there was to catch transitioning service members or other reservists that are thinking about leaving the service, and then keep them within the organization, keep their uniforms on so they continue to serve. And we talked a little bit beforehand about like, hey, you're going to military service on the private side. You don't have to absolutely abandon on like in a binary way your reserve service. Can you tell me a little bit about your military service while you were in school and how that may have helped you?
Yeah, I think the 75th Innovation Command is one of these things where, I had no idea it existed. I was fully intending on just getting off active duty, going to the IRR, and doing my civilian
being gone.
life.
Yeah, totally.
And you and your folks, you caught me
on purpose.
and it's been great. It's an unconventional unit. It's a great way for people like me, and I think there's a lot of people like me, a lot of vets, who want to stay involved but can't do it full time. The 75th Innovation Command allows me to build a civilian career, become a better citizen, but at the same time keep the uniform in the closet, be able to engage when and where appropriate.
Yeah, it was the former Chief of the Army Reserves, General Lucky, and General Bo Young that were the ones kind of brainchilds behind organizing this thing. And I think it was such a smart organization because it allowed for you to continue service, and you never know where that continued service goes. So like we've talked about DIU here, we've talked about the 75th. There's a whole lot of places, but it never materializes if you don't keep your uniform on.
Yeah. I tell you what, we're going to get back to that in just a second. All right, we'll be right back. More with Brendan Duebner. All right, welcome back to Warrior Money. We're joined by Brendan Duebner. Brendan, you and Dan were just rehashing your time in the 75th Innovation Group, a phenomenal unit. So where did you serve when you were in the military? Any deployments, and then that transition? Walk us through.
I was a field artillery officer out of Fort Bragg, Fort Liberty, whatever you want to call it. I was in the 18th Field Artillery Brigade, HIMARS unit. Did one deployment to the Middle East, mostly Kuwait, Afghanistan a little bit, mostly Kuwait. And it was a phenomenal experience. I would do the military again, especially those junior military officer years, again in a heartbeat.
But then you joined the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest business school in the world, the Wharton Business School. Tell us about that transition. What was Wharton like, and how it compares to other top 20 business schools?
Yeah, Wharton was a phenomenal experience. I don't think there's a better way for veterans to transition out of the military than a top MBA program. And obviously I'm biased, But I personally think Wharton is the best business school, especially for veterans. I mean, if you look at the numbers, about 10% of the Wharton population are veterans. And if you look at, Harvard, Stanford, it's like 5%. And I think it's just a great tool for veterans to learn about a wide breadth of industries, to meet some really fascinating people, get another network that's almost as good as the veteran network, and just figure out what's next.
Yeah, we talk a lot. Oftentimes when we have our interviews, we talk about what's next. So it's like one of the things that people have to go do is find their purpose. I think for life skills for soldiers, you finding some of that purpose. The other part of it is like being physically and mentally fit, because that transition happens. Can you tell me a little bit more about your transition process on the personal and the physical side?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I'm a big, anybody who knows me knows I'm a huge proponent of habits, right? So I've kept some things for the military. I wake up early every morning. I work out first thing in the morning. I try to eat as healthy as humanly possible. I go to sleep at a certain time. I read before bed every night. And I think those have really done a lot for me. I think as veterans going into the private sector, you're not off the bat, you're not going to be the stud. There's going to be somebody who's been in banking or private equity or consulting or venture capital or whatever for years before you. They just know it better. They know the terrain. But I think as vets, between the grit, the leadership skills, and the oftentimes the good habits, I think you can catch up and often exceed over time.
Yeah, so you're wearing an Aura ring right now, and I was like, I got this like mental image of like somebody wearing an Aura ring around a base, and everybody knows where you're at. Well, that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is it's a good way to start to track and kind of like baseline where you are in your health and your lifestyle journey. Tell me about how you use that.
Yeah, I think, like I said, anybody who knows me knows I'm into habits, and I got this for Christmas 2 or 3 years ago, and it's been really interesting. I think just being able to see how the body reacts to different things, and like one of the big takeaways for me was I needed to stop eating so close to bed because it was affecting my sleep and affecting digestion and all of these things. So, yeah, I mean, it's a cool little tool.
Cool.
Yeah, and how about the habits? Like, so you said you work out in the morning. What do you do? Because we talked about the performance triad, which is exercise, eat right, and recovery, which is really sleep. What do you do to stay in shape and to stay, as an American soldier?
Yeah, well, I wake up at 5 a.m. I go to the gym for an hour. I've had some like back injuries and whatnot, so I'm not lifting heavy or doing all the CrossFit stuff anymore. But I'm swimming regularly. I'm doing even just like an inclined walk on the treadmill. You can get so much benefit from just doing the little things and mixing in some mobility. It goes a long way.
Cool. So we talked about you transitioning into Wharton. We talked about the business you're working. Like, we also very much care about how did you pay for it? Like, what were the benefits that you used? Like, what were the things that you were able to leverage from your military service that enabled you to go do the things you wanted to go do?
One of the things I think that's really special about the military is it really opens up a lot of doors for you, including benefits-wise, that I didn't even know about.
Yeah.
Right? And I think most vets don't know about. And one of the reasons why I think Wharton is the best business school for vets is because the veteran network there is incredibly strong. And they walked me through like, hey, do you meet these requirements? Then you should go talk to the VA and see what and that's how I got business school paid for. So, yeah, and it's such an advantage to be able to come out of an MBA program or any kind of schooling with no debt and be on good financial footing.
Do you own a house?
I don't, not yet.
You're renting still?
Yeah.
So do you use any of the benefits from home ownership or any other benefits like VA disability or any of the other things?
Not on the home ownership front yet. One day. I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area. It's kind of expensive.
Good point.
But yeah, I use VA healthcare, which frankly has been a great experience. And yeah, I'm sure I use some other benefits too. But overall, there's a lot of benefits. There's a lot of things out there, and you should take advantage of them.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that we don't talk about are all the inherent built-in things that we have to make things more affordable, accessible, right? So you got your MBA on a VA loan. I'm sorry, on the GI Bill. And then you were able to use healthcare to support you while you were in there, both the military service and your VA side, which is awesome.
Yeah.
How about as far as the other challenges? Listen, when you talk about life skills for soldiers, really about that fiscal readiness, being able to make sure you're paying your bills, taking that stress away. We also know, though, since 9/11, we've lost over 150,000 of our brothers and sister veterans to suicide.
Yeah.
So mental health is just as important as your physical health. What more do you see can we do? I mean, we can't brick and mortar our way out of it. We can't just keep building, VA hospitals, et cetera, especially because the veteran population is shrinking. But what do you see, and why do you think that's so important? And what do you try to do to make sure that you pass on that proper message?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is incredibly sad how veterans have felt leaving the military over the past 20 years. I mean, there's just no way around it. I think some of the things that the military is doing now is great. Things like the holistic health and fitness program, I think is excellent. And I think it could be expanded to include things like financial readiness. Again, especially as we move to more of a peacetime force, and there should theoretically be time opening up on training calendars and all that. I think if you invest that time having leaders take care of soldiers, not random people who are coming in from the outside, leaders, I think that's how you can help people build better bases, and that will allow them to better maneuver through life and through the military. Yeah.
Well, what is that? What is the holistic program? What is that?
So the holistic health and fitness program is a program. I know it's for the Army. I'm not sure about the other branches.
Well, it's Special Forces out of Tampa, so it's joint Special Forces units
Okay,
as well.
yeah,
But
that makes sense. So it's a lot about fitness, but it's also about they have, and I'm gonna butcher this, but they have their pillars on kind of readiness, and it's not just about your weapons qual, your PT score. It's also about your nutrition. It's about your spiritual health. It's about your financial health, and it's looking holistically at readiness.
That's great.
yeah, it goes to your earlier point, Dan, about it's really living a purpose-driven life, right? And what is your purpose? Yes, you're the ultimate warfighter, for America, right? But you're also, a person of faith. You're also someone who is, mentally straight, meaning, you understand, what might be tugging at you, and that your mental health is just as important as your physical health, and why you got to be proactive about it. Don't wait till you're in crisis to go see a counselor.
Yeah. So when you transition from Wharton to the business world, I'd just like to know where can people learn more about your life skills for soldiers at?
Yeah, Life Skills for Soldiers, you can find us on all the kind of usual social media platforms, Instagram, LinkedIn, all that stuff. Our website, lifeskillsforsoldiers.org, or just reach out to us directly via DM on Instagram or email at info@lifeskillsforsoldiers.
Awesome. That's it. That's very, very cool. So, hey, we generally end every segment with a kind of a rapid fire Q&A segment. And I really liked this first question. So what is some money advice that you wish you'd been told earlier in life?
I think just get started. Get into the game and take advantage of compounding over time.
Yeah. And what's the biggest mistake that people make on their way to success?
Oh, I think chasing the wrong things and burning time, energy, and resources.
And what is the most unexpected part of your journey?
All of it. Did I think I'd be here? I started Life Skills for Soldiers 5-6 years ago as a nonprofit while I was transitioning out of business, out of active duty, and I did not think it would be where it is today. And I'm excited to see where it goes.
That wraps up our show for today. So listen, subscribe, and review Warrior Money on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcast, or find us at Yahoo Finance. I'm Patrick Murphy.
And I'm Dan Kunze. We'll see you next week.